Hello, YouTubers, and welcome back to another episode of The Grandstand here on the Ohio Patriot Education Network channel. So, for today's episode, we're going to talk about leadership and grid down, which are not mutually exclusive, but for the purposes of this video, they're pretty much going to be intertwined. So, obviously, for those that don't know, I haven't been paying attention to this channel lately. I obviously play a game called Walking Dead Survivors. Pretty good game. Unfortunately, after taking over the leadership role of a one of the clans in this game recently, a bunch of people left because I guess they didn't want my leadership is what it was, or they just didn't understand what was going on is what it was because people weren't communicating properly is what it was. And that's not a problem again with some of these games and stuff like that, is that when you don't have proper communication between everybody, you basically are leaving people, up in the air, and then they have no fucking clue what the hell's going on, and then they're like, "Oh, I didn't, join this clan to be under this person's leadership or whatever. What the hell happened here?" Kind of thing is what it was. And instead of them just asking questions, I'll just leave or something similar to that matter. And the thing is, what's silly to me is going on that vein of things in this game. You have people who have left this particular clan that I'm now running and are homeless. They have no other place to go to, is what it is, which is just stupid because it's like, dude, you could have just stayed here. Like, I get that we're, not as active as you would have liked to be because like 20 of your buddies fucking left for some other place or whatever it is, dude. But like, yeah. Until there's like, spots open for you at that other place, like you're gonna be gone, dude. Like nobody's gonna want you is what it is. And it's like, might as well just stay here and, at least help collectively who's left, is what it is. But then it also brought up a point that I was thinking about recently, which is, what happens in grid down, post actual collapse and stuff like that. Like if we actually had a real collapse and stuff in America or any other country for that matter, you know, who would assume leadership roles? Like, would it be a natural leadership thing or would it be something, where it's like people taking shit, by force, kind of like Negan style and stuff like that? Or would it be some place in the middle there, honestly? And the thing with that is, you'd have different places and things like that, whether it be, you know, something like a Ezekiel character for that matter, in the Walking Dead there, where that guy was basically just a natural kind of leader in the kingdom and shit, versus, like a Negan type who's just gonna take shit by force and, fuck everybody else kind of thing is what it is, dude. And my thing with that is I think it'd be someplace in the middle, honestly, where it would be, because I actually consider it to be like Rick and stuff like that. Like that guy is kind of um, more to the point of actually sort of a middleman, middle guy, whatever you call it there, sort of like in between the two, because he's not like fully like, psychotic like Negan potentially was, and he's not, a pussy like fucking Ezekiel was. Because that's the big thing with Ezekiel, dude. People don't realize that with Ezekiel's character in that show. That dude was a legit puss, is what it was, dude. And the big thing there is, when you're gonna be that kind of a fucking like weak ass leader and stuff like that, dude, you're gonna be like very ineffective as a leader, is what it's gonna be. And yeah, you might have a few people listen to you and put up with your retarded bullshit because they want to play fucking Fantasyland and stuff like that. But when the rubber meets the road, like you're gonna be one of these people that becomes, very much um nothing, essentially. Like you're gonna be like a middleman kind of thing and stuff like that. And that's what we're seeing now with like the last season of The Walking Dead, by the way, is that particular character is just like this random dude taking care of fucking farm animals, basically, is what it is, dude. like no joke. He's like seriously like taking care of a petting zoo in that fucking show. And it's like, and you mean to tell me that they couldn't just killed that character off like a long fucking time ago? Come on now, man. But you know, and that's the thing too, like, just judging by that entire series, like there's a lot of them fucking people that would have never made it to that point in time in history, dude. Whether it be the chicks who can't fucking hear, whether it be, you know, whatever. And that's my biggest issue with that series in a nutshell, is them being like, oh yeah, let's go ahead and do this shit or whatever the case be. And it's like, yeah, those chicks wouldn't survive, man. Like, what the fuck you doing here, kind of thing. But yeah, so apparently whenever the strongest survivor event is going on in this game that I'm playing right now, you have one thing called kill event, which is so stupid because the game itself doesn't allow you to say the word kill without it like blurring it out, which is so fucking stupid, by the way. Over censorship too on that one. I'll just point that one out. Um, but yeah, the biggest issue there is that what you have is a situation of this motherfucker needs to fuck off already. We've denied their ass being part of our clan now for like 3 times already. Uh, but anyway, so yeah, the whole point I'm trying to make is that you have, difference between like people actually doing something and somebody else doing something else is what it is. And so the real problem is when you have people that don't want to listen to, reason and things like that, then you end up with a situation of nobody's doing anything is what it is. And that's the one nice thing about having, communication and like good communication is what it is, because that way you can actually have people that give a fuck and they will, be in a situation where it's like, okay, cool, we're going to do this thing now or whatever kind of deal. Instead of it being a situation of like, yeah, you're going to be forced to, be put in a leadership role and nobody's going to listen to you is what it is, dude. Or very few people are going to listen to you versus, what we're seeing now, which is, I think, truthfully, in like a real life scenario, there's a big difference too, obviously, between like, gaming and actual real life stuff. And I think, truthfully, when it comes to real life, you're going to see a lot more people that would be willing to step up and back someone who would naturally step up as a leader versus, something where you're in a game or whatever, playing a game and you're like, oh, it's just a fucking game kind of thing or whatever. And half the people are like, no, I don't want to listen to that person because I don't trust them or whatever the case be, or I don't trust what's going on here, whatever it is, dude. And, that's fine. That's all fine and well and dandy and everything like that, dude. But the problem is that you're also not allowing people to be able to get ahead is what it is. And that's the issue with this game, honestly, is like, that's the whole point of being a part of a clan and stuff like that, is that you're helping each other in different things, whether it be the Tales of Survival events and stuff like that, to get more long range missions and shit like that, or whatever the case be. And that's the thing, dude. Like when you're, have an inactive clan or very like low active clan, you're actively hurting everybody there because like it's one thing if you want to be, a solo person and whatever, dude, like that's fine, but like don't be part of a fucking clan then is what it is, or create your own clan of like, 2-3 people is what it is, man. Um and the issue there is when you're part of something bigger and you don't care, like, it disaffects everybody is what it is. And that's the big thing, in real life with grid down and stuff like that is people ain't gonna put up with that shit, dude. You're gonna have a lot of people that would just be like, nah, bro, fuck you kind of thing. And they would not be putting up with it. And you'd have a lot of people that would be like, oh, well, you're going to do this thing. And that's when you come to blows or something else happens for that matter. And I think that's what would happen a lot, honestly, in a grid down kind of deal, is that it would be a situation like that where you'd have people that would, just be over people's shit is what it would be. And it would be very quickly they'd be over people's shit is what it would be because they just not going to put up with it is what it is, man. And whether that be, people pulling guns on each other or whatever the case be. And then I think to a lesser extent of that, you would actually see a lot more folks who would be willing to compromise and stuff. And there would be other people who end up, finding each other kind of thing. And that's the thing as well, like I think truthfully, looking at, again, The Walking Dead as an example of this and stuff like that, dude. When you look at the different groups that were part of that whole series, you had a lot of people who would sit there and be, this thing or that thing or something else for that matter. And there were several times where you would end up having like a smaller group of folks, like, 5, 10, 20, whatever it is, dude. And I think that would be another thing too, as well, is you would have something like that be a thing where you would basically have, something like those claimer guys and stuff like that kind of deal. Or it would be something else for that matter where it's like, okay, you're going to have, this kind of thing or whatever the case be, but like there's only going to be maybe 5 or 6 people involved in the whole thing or something like that, dude, or 10 at most, or whatever it is, dude. And then maybe it'll be like a group of like 15, 20 or something like that versus, a community like the saviors that were like hundreds, if not thousands deep, honestly. And, the thing about that was you're talking about, ruthless dictatorships at that point. And the big thing is, I think there'd be a lot of people that would not put up with that, honestly, dude. I think there'd be a lot of people that would be like, no, fuck that guy. And there'd be other people that would be like, I'm kind of against this, but simultaneously it's like, this might actually work, kind of thing is what it would be, man. And so what you would end up having is you would have a group of people who would actually back that kind of a thing because they would be like, well, it actually does work, so might as well not rock the boat, kind of thing is what it is, man. I think that's a lot of problem with our society currently is like you have, and I'm not saying like there's a ruthless dictatorship going on right now. I mean, there technically could be, in federal government, for all the fuck we know. But the whole thing is, it's like, it's people that again go along to get along kind of deal. And the problem with that is that when you're not, actively doing anything to, rock the boat or whatever the case be, because you're like, oh, well, it's fine now. And it's like, yeah. And then you wonder why things are, going how they're going and stuff like that. And you end up having, fucking grocery bills be 5 times what they used to be. And now you're fucking, looking at your neighbors and shit like that. Like, I wonder how many meals they would actually make is what it is. And going the whole Alex Jones fucking route is what it would be, man. But obviously I kid around to some extent anyway. But yeah, I think that truthfully, I think there would be some crazy ass cannibalism going on in Grid Down and stuff like that, dude. Like not intentionally, but again, it would be, well, not for everybody intentionally. I think there is some people that would be like, okay, cool, let's go that route kind of deal. And then there would be people that would be like, nah, bro, you're fucked up kind of thing or whatever. And they would end up, potentially becoming a meal to something else if that be the case then. And then of course, going back to where we're at right now with this game that I'm playing right now, actually, there are at least looks like 3 people's towns in my thing here that are on fire right now, and at least 4 to 5 people that are not shielded currently. And again, I think at least a couple of people aren't active is what it is. Because the thing is, like I've said to people before, I'm like, dude, you guys know this is coming up. Like, pay attention to fucking chat and stuff. And nobody pays attention to fucking chat is what it is, dude. And unfortunately, in some cases, I think it has to do with the fact that you have people who do not speak English and do not understand English. And what's even more retarded about the whole thing actually is like, it's like you realize there's a function there that actually says, hey, we communicate in all languages. All you have to do is hit this fucking button and it automatically translate for you, right? Like, come on now, man. Um, but apparently people don't pay attention. That's what it is. But yeah, the whole point I'm trying to make is I think going to the potentiality of like leadership and Grid Down and stuff like that, dude, you will see 100% times in history in the near future, like post anything, where there will be people that will step up naturally as leaders and stuff like that. Now, granted, they might be in positions of power. Who the hell knows? Or it could be something where it's just, everyday men and women and stuff like that that just step up and be like, no, you know what? We're not going to put up with this kind of crap. Like, let's do this kind of thing or whatever it is, dude. And they end up being the ones that become the natural leadership, and they end up becoming the ones that are, the good folks that end up saving people and stuff like that. And I think in a lot of cases, it might be, 1 or 2 here and there and stuff like that. And it might be, eventually you're having like entire groups come into places, what it would be then. So I don't know. My thing is, and I've been thinking about this for some time now, since I've been watching The Walking Dead for, pretty much a decade now, or how the fuck long it's been on. It's been more than that, I think, even because it was like 2007 ish or so, maybe. I'm thinking 8, someplace in there. I can't remember, honestly. I feel like it was either right around Obama's administration or like right after it, dude, that it started. And yeah, like it's been a lot. It's been 11 seasons now at this point, and yeah, many many years and whatnot. And my thing of it is, it's like thinking about that, it's all the different scenarios and shit like that that could have been interesting storylines that they hadn't gone with, and other things along those lines. But Yeah, I think truthfully when it comes to, the potential for a grid down and, like, natural leadership and stuff like that, like, it's something you're always gonna see with people because there are gonna be certain individuals that you just, look at and you're like, "Okay, this person is gonna be the person that's gonna be here for me," or whatever the case be, or they're gonna be able to, keep me safe or protect me or whatever it is, dude. Doesn't really matter. Versus, you're gonna have some crazy asses that are gonna be not bothering to do anything, and people just don't even care is what it is, man. And I think unfortunately, you're gonna have a lot of people that will see things and some will take advantage of it. And I believe that to be the case even right now, dude. Like you're looking at a lot of what's going on right now in our country, you know, and you have all these people that are being, and again, this shit's all by design too, man. You look at all these people that are being let out of prisons or let out of jails or whatever it is really easily and shit like that, or just repeat offenders like crazy in these Democrat run cities and stuff. And so you end up having a situation where law at all, never gonna talk about law and order at all, and they really don't care about you, your safety, your friends, your family, anything like that, dude. And these will end up being the okay, not sure if my audio went out there or not, but going back to where I was at though. I was talking about Democrat run cities and the criminals that keep being let out and be repeat offenders and stuff like that because they don't give a fuck about the law. They don't give a fuck about law and order. And they don't give a fuck about your safety or anything else like that. They'll just look at you and victimize you, is what it is, dude. And the thing about that is, right, is that you're having so many states now pass constitutional carry and stuff like that to where people ain't putting up with shit anymore, dude. And I think honestly, in grid down, you would see a lot of people that would be like, nah, bro, fuck you. And they would just blow people's brains out immediately, is what it would be, dude. And I'm not going to make any fucking qualms about that shit. I think you would definitely see people be killed immediately. Uh, you know, and there was I keep going back to that one documentary thing that History Channel did a while ago about that family, and it was the same kind of deal there, where it was legitimately people, uh, you know, they weren't putting up with it. If you were a thief or whatever the case be, you'd be killed on the spot. You'd be fucking, um, your body would basically be hung up to be used as a message to anybody else that would try it again in the future. Is what it would be, man. And I think there'd be a lot of people that would have that happen, honestly, where you would have a small groups of people is what it would be, dude, trying to take advantage of others, and yeah, they would be killed very very quickly. Is what it would be, man, because people ain't putting up with that shit. Is what it is. And unfortunately, some people don't understand that, and some people don't even care. Is what it is. And so what you end up having is you have a situation where, again, when people don't care, when people don't, uh, they just want to take advantage of everybody and stuff like that, they're going to be the ones that don't make it very early on. And then on the flip side of things, you're going to have people that would become, that natural leadership and stuff like that. And I feel like honestly, the way things are going anymore, if I can survive and shit in such a wasteland or whatever the case be, I think truthfully, I could actually be a natural leader when it comes to things, or at least like maybe not natural, maybe not 100% natural leadership or whatever the case be, but um, what am I trying to say here now? Yeah, I think I could be like a natural leader, whatever the case be, or something similar to that matter, or at least be like like a small council kind of deal or whatever the case be, like a Game of Thrones style kind of deal or whatever the case is there, where it's like maybe I'm not king or whatever, or maybe I'm not like high like the highest like leadership role or whatever the case be, but I'm like a vice leader kind of dude or whatever the case be, or like a general or something is what it would be. And I think truthfully, you would have something like that be a natural thing is what it would be, where you'd have people that would be like, okay, cool, like we're going to listen to these people or whatever the case be because they're going to help us survive is what it is. And I think unfortunately, when you have people who don't care when you have people who, just again, just want to use people for, whatever it is, dude, there's going to be a lot of that happening as well. And unfortunately, when that kind of thing happens, you're going to see a lot of people just be over it, dude. And they're just going to be like, nah, bro. And that's why I think, truthfully, when it comes to everything that's happening with, you know, all these different major cities and stuff like that, and people thinking that they're going to survive somehow in a major city post grid down, they're not. They're done, man. You will naturally see warlords step up, and it's kind of like that thing that happened in the Chaz a couple years ago, where you had this really like ineffective leader who was like, I think that original kid was like 18 or 19 or something like that, and was supposed to be like trans or something, and then was outed for being like a basically sexual, not sexual, physical abuser, and yeah, it was like them basically being ousted within like a day or two, and then that's when that Raz Simone guy stepped into the fucking leadership role and was like gunpoint tyranny basically, and was like, okay, cool, I got my AK now, and it's like, hey, anybody know how to use a gun? And the one kid's like, oh yeah, I do. And he's like, okay, here's an AR. Take the clip out and put it back in. It's like, you're a fucking idiot, Raz. It's called a magazine. It's called a mag, bro. Seriously. And that's the one, like, it's nuanced shit like that that fucking pisses me off, by the way, when people misuse the wrong terms and stuff like that, dude, and we let them get away with it is what it is. Because it just shows the ignorance of people when it comes to firearms and stuff like that and firearms ownership in this country. And it's those kind of people that tend not to respect the fucking Second Amendment or respect firearms in general that end up being criminals and stuff then, and end up, or if they're not criminals, they're just ignorant to the fucking situation. And yeah, it's one thing that's always pissed me the fuck off when it comes to the Second Amendment community as a whole, dude, is like, you're just letting people get away with that kind of stuff. And it's like very, very fucking irritating. Now, granted, maybe I'm more irritated than anything else, honestly, when it comes to shit like that. But it's like, again, if you're not, using the right terminology, it not only makes you look bad, it makes the rest of us look bad, is the way I look at it, honestly. And my thing of it is, it's a situation where it would be nice if you had, people that understood, what was going on in this country and stuff like that, and would actually care enough to, not fuck each other in the ass and fuck each other over like that is what it would be, man. Because again, once you go down that road and you don't understand things or you don't care about, the understanding of things or whatever the case be, then you end up putting everyone into a situation of like, okay, this just looks like stupidness is what it is, dude. And yeah, it's very fucking frustrating is what it is, dude. And I think people understand what I'm saying, hopefully. But if you don't, like, hopefully you will at some point. And yeah, it's just very, very, very irritating is what it is, man. Because again, you know, words matter. Um, you know, I'm trying to think what I'm saying now. Yeah, words definitely matter. And putting yourself out there as a potential leader and not being able to actually lead and looking like an ineffectual piece of shit, basically, is what leads to the downfalls of countries, is what it is, man. And that's the big thing that we're seeing, I think, right now, honestly, is, everything going on in the last 2 years in this country right now is all by design. It 100% is. You can't tell me it's not. And when you're trying to turn a first world nation into a third world nation and you're trying to do some great reset fucking hoopla bullshit is what it is, dude. Like, yeah, not okay, man. And that's what I fear right now. Like, I fear like America is heading towards a second Great Depression that would be even worse than the original Great Depression. And if we go down that road, who's to say how many people wouldn't, end up going into cannibalism just because? And I think, it's funny to me that there was I was listening to one of the casts this week actually that Benny and his uh panel do, and they were mentioning something about, I guess, Michigan now has, I'm assuming it was a law that they passed in their General Assembly to basically, starting this year, force every hunter in the state of Michigan to start tracking where they killed their deer at and exactly like what the area was and all this other stuff like that. And I'm just like, no, fuck you, kind of thing. And I'm kind of wondering if Ohio's going to do that shit too, honestly. And again, that would be one thing I'd actually willing to be take them over to court over is what it is, dude. Because number one, governments don't need to know what the fuck you're actually having in your freezer. Number two, don't need to know where the fuck you're hunting that thing at. And number three, sure as fuck don't need to actually be able to go out and confront you while you're fucking armed. And that was one thing that even that Duke guy brought up. He's like, yeah, so you're basically telling us to tell you, like, okay, I'm going to be out here with a big fucking gun, armed, and you're going to know exactly where I'm at? Like, fuck that. And that's exactly what it is, dude, at the end of the day. It's a situation like that. And, you know, for those that are interested, that's why I tend to check out legiscan.com quite a bit, because that is a really good fucking site for people to be able to find out what's going on in their General Assembly, whether it be a piece of pro-2A legislation or a piece of anti-gun legislation or anything for that matter. And a lot of the times, especially here in Ohio, a lot of the legislation that goes through a legislator throughout the year that's introduced as legislation, it's a bunch of do nothing shit. It's basically, hey, you know, we're gonna add another license plate to the license plate thing of like, now it's gonna be like this design kind of thing or something like that, or it's like, okay, you know, there's some, you know, police officer that died or whatever the case be. Now we're gonna name a memorial highway after him is what it is, dude. Or it's like some, you know, person that died in like some war overseas or something like that. It's like, now we're gonna name a portion of this highway after this person or something like that kind of thing. And I understand that, like, obviously it has to be introduced or whatever the case be to like become quote unquote like laws and shit, dude. But the thing is, like, to me, that's sort of like do nothing kind of shit where you could be doing like a lot better things at the time and stuff. So yeah, it's just silly is what it is. But anyway, I'm actually going to go ahead and do a little screen share here, and we're going to talk about legiscan.com for a minute. Here's what it is. So this is actually the legiscan.com for Ohio, which, you know, you can look at the state right here, and it has every single state across the board, and you can find out exactly what's going on with every single state at any given time, and apparently including Washington, D.C. and U.S. Congress at the very bottom there, which I didn't even know about until now. But yeah, I tend to go through this on a daily basis for Ohio and stuff like that, just to see what's going on right now. And yeah, just looking at what's being introduced here in the last couple of days. Got a bunch of different stuff here. Actually got one thing from yesterday that was introduced, HB 729, revised membership of county veterans service commissions. Again, just random stuff like that. Or the other day it was expand and change name of National Guard scholarship program, exempt certain native plant seeds from agricultural seed law. Apparently that's stuff that you're using to grow food and shit like that is what it was. And that one might be a big deal, honestly. And that's usually that's Republicans that are doing stuff like that and whatnot. Or it's like where's it at? Things like this right here. Authorized use of a digital driver's license or state ID card. That's just weird, by the way. And it does kind of make me question like the people that are behind that one when it's a bunch of Democrats, obviously. Starting with that Willis Blackspear Jr. guy. And I'm kind of wondering if it's something for them to, because, you know, people keep bitching about like voter ID and stuff like that. And my thing is, well, first of all, you're just a lazy asshole if you're not going to sit there and actually go get a fucking real license, dude, or a real state ID. It's like, it's not that hard, bro. I've done it in the last couple of years here. Hell, I had to renew mine, I think it was last year. And yeah, it was a pain in the fucking ass, dude, because you had a whole bunch of fucking people at the DMV then, and, or actually I think it was BMV because that's what we call them here. But yeah, it was a pain in the fucking ass because you end up having a situation of people not wanting to do their job properly, and then you end up having like only like 2 people open and stuff like that for like renewals and shit. And yeah, it was just a pain in the dick, dude, is what it was. So, but anyway, it was really an issue, is what it was, dude. But the whole point I'm trying to make is though, is that when you end up in a situation where people don't tend to care, or, you know, will actively be trying to like, you know, kind of get one over on everybody is what it is. It's like, nah, bro, fuck you, kind of thing, you know. It's like, why are we listening to you ever, motherfucker? Kind of deal there. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing a lot of in America right now, and, you know, 2022 here is what it is. And it's like, people have finally had it, man. And I think that's a good thing, honestly, because it shows like Americans are just sick and tired of government is what it is, dude. Now, granted, I'm sure there's going to be a lot that would just cuck out to tyranny again because we saw that shit in 2020 like crazy. But there's other people that would be like, no, you know what? Fuck these fucking people, dude. And that's the thing. And to answer this question, yeah, we've been warning for years now. And that was even before I became fucking gunner in this country. I was warning that shit years ago, even, dude, myself. And it was a whole thing there. And that's the thing, dude. And that's the thing. Like all these 100 people that were like, oh yeah, I just hunt. I just have my shotgun and, whatever the case be there. And it's like, bro, like after they're done with us, after they're done with these so-called quote unquote assault weapons, you don't think they're going to come after your fucking shotguns and your revolvers and shit like that too? Of course they are, dude. The entire fucking point of of government tyranny and a dictatorship takeover is to have an unarmed fucking country entirely, dude. To where the only people armed are their fucking jackbooted thug pieces of shit is what it is, dude. And that's the entire point of the whole thing. So it's like to sit there and be like, oh no, they're not coming after my guns. It's like, yeah, they are. They're coming after everybody's guns. And if you think they're not, you're just a fucking silly ass is what it is, dude. Seriously. And that's the problem with so many people is they don't fucking get it, And a lot of it has to do, and I will say it, dude. I'll say it like straight up right now. It's a lot of people who tend to be on the older side who still think government is their fucking friend is what it is, dude, when it's not. And it never has been. These also tend to be the same people that think that the Democrat Party is still the party of JFK when it's not. And it hasn't been for fucking decades. So, yeah, it's just people being dumb. And then they wonder, why they end up, in a detention facility or whatever the case be down the road and shit or whatever the case is, man. It's like, it's not that hard to figure out, bro. We tried to tell you what the fuck was happening here. You just chose not to listen. So, anyway. I digress on that one. I think there's a lot, like I said, I think there's a lot of people that are smart. I think there's a lot of people that are silly. And I think there's a lot of people that are stupid. And I think there's a lot of people that are willfully ignorant is what it is, dude. And I think more than anything, what we've seen since 2020 is just willful ignorance coming out of a lot of folks is what it is, dude. That just want to sit there and, fuck around or whatever the case be. And then they want to, be like, oh no, they're never coming for my double barrel or whatever it is. And it's like, yes, they are. They're coming for everything. And if you don't want to wake up to that, like, you're going to be the one that gets trampled under, bro. It's like, oh, they never come for my 1911. Not right away, but eventually, yeah. And that's the big thing, man. And people just don't want to fucking see it. They just don't want to fucking see it, man. Because they're just willfully ignorant to the situation is what it is. And when you have people that will go down that road with you over and over and over again and continue to be willfully ignorant of the situation and not actually care what the fuck is happening to them, they tend to be the people that don't show up for the rest of our rights is what it is, dude. And that's why I believe there is a big difference when it comes to different things in the communities and stuff like that, when it comes to folks who are pro 2A or pro, Second Amendment advocates, activists, constitutionalists like myself and stuff like that, versus some people that will go out there and just be like, oh no, I'm just a hunter. I'm just a guy who wants to hunt. And it's like, that's fine, dude, if you just want to feed the family or whatever the case be. But again, you should be worried about things just like the rest of us are, because if you're not, that's what ends up leading and leaving, the door open for future tyranny is what it is. And when people don't realize that shit, or like I said, are willful ignorant to it is what it is, dude, that ends up being a situation where all it does is hurt the rest of us in the future, because it allows for that same kind of tyranny at our fucking front doors is what it is, man. And so, yeah, you end up having a situation of people just not wanting to actually listen up and work together is what it is, man. And it's unfortunate, because then you end up leading to another situation of people who, will end up falling prey to something even worse down the road. And I'd like to point something out, actually, while we're still here. In the last day or so, you've had dipshit Biden talked to dictator of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, about potentially cracking the fucking pipelines in Venezuela for oil reserves. Meanwhile, same fucking asshole Biden has sat there and depleted our fucking petroleum reserves to the lowest level in over 40 fucking years now, dude. And mind you, for those that don't know about this, dude, we have to have petroleum reserves in this country for a simple reason: in case our fucking country goes to war with another nation, so that we can actually power our fucking vehicles, whether it be Humvees or planes or whatever the fuck else, dude, for actual fighting against, I don't know, fucking China or something. And yet, meanwhile, you got fucktard piece of shit You got fucktard piece of shit little cunt Biden, who is actively backdooring us for fucking China, dude. People he's had ties with for fucking decades. And it's like, at what point is this shit high treason, dude? At what point is everything that this man done high treason? Like, seriously, slap the cuffs on him, slap the cuffs on Kamala, go all the way down that fucking bullshit line of succession, dude, and start arresting every one of them, dude. And we have a brand new presidential election. None of those motherfuckers are allowed to run because they're all in jail now forever under deprivation of law and a bunch of other fucking crimes they committed at this point. And yeah, we have a better country again. That's what it is, dude. Honestly, I'll tell you what, looking at DeSantis in the last couple of days here, that dude is definitely making waves. I think he's definitely going to run for 2024, dude. I hope he does, honestly, because I would 100% be willing to cast a vote for him at this point. And my thing is, looking at, Ron DeSantis and stuff like that, like he's definitely a good dude, I think. Now, granted, I would love to see him, go after the General Assembly there in Florida and call them out and stuff like that and be like, hey, shit's about to get done here. We're going to pass constitutional carry and stuff like that and get it done that way is what it is. I don't know if it'll ever happen or not, though. I think it'll take a little bit more time so far to actually get something done there. But yeah, it'd be cool if it did, though. And the thing is, I think at this point, when it comes to Donald Trump and stuff, dude, like, I think we all know some stuff happened, and we can't obviously talk about it on here. I had to cut my words short there with Biden's ass, just to make sure that people don't try to fucking slap me down is what it is. But the thing is, Trump had the ability to be two-term president already, dude, and he should have been. And the thing is, with him, he just needs to step aside and let other people come forward, dude, that are going to be better and are going to be what's best for America when it's all said and done. And hopefully we can make it to that point in time in history, dude, because again, like, I would rather not see some kind of a fucking crazy ass conflict of, everybody dead in the streets kind of thing is what it is, dude. I'd much rather have a situation of, us as Americans coming together and trying to get stuff done and actually make this country a better nation is what it would be then. So I don't know. I don't know. I think there are some people that want that to happen. And I don't know if there's enough of us right now, dude. I hope there is. I really hope there is. But I have no idea. And it would be nice to know if there, actually was enough people. But again, I think only time will start telling. And I think you will have a lot more individuals, like I said, step forward and become, sort of natural leaders and stuff like that is what it would be. And you'd have a lot of other people that would come forward and be like just complete jackasses and, out themselves as just the scumbag pieces of shit that they really are is what it is, dude. So sorry, I was trying to do some calculations in my head here is what it is right now to find out exactly where I'd be at with this whole thing. And yeah, I just realized I had just enough stuff to actually get this done in the next hour. So gonna go ahead and activate that now. But yeah, the whole point is though, is that I think we are definitely at a precipice in the US history right now. And I think we're definitely heading towards some interesting times ahead to where, certain individuals they don't want us to succeed, I believe truthfully, and I think they're trying to hinder us at every possible turn. And unfortunately, when that's a thing and people are not waking up to that being a thing, you end up being left in the dust is what it is. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't plan on being left in the dust when things settle. And I'd like to be much further ahead and have this country be truly, truly great again, is what it is, dude. And yeah, to go and talk about that for a minute now. Yeah, Trump did start a movement. And I think thing to think about Donald Trump in general is, he started something great. He finally it was basically him like wake whether it be red pilling or whatever you want to say at that point, it was him waking enough Americans up to be like, yeah, our country did was once great in this nation and stuff like that. And it was obviously, if you look at the time period that, Trump always brought up was the 1950s and stuff like that, which when you look at the 1950s in America, you have post World War II at that point to where America was pretty much the only superpower across the earth at that point in time in history because Germany had destroyed themselves with the Nazi regime and stuff like that. You had Russia was pretty much a non-existent threat and stuff like that at that point in time because they had done all kinds of stuff and gotten themselves involved in that with Stalin and shit. You had China was basically not an issue. Everything else that could have been a world power at that point was obviously not an issue. So you had America be able to flourish, be able to prosper, be able to profit off of things. And obviously, this is, pre about 20 years or so before third wave feminism really became a thing in colleges. And, you had women in the workforce and stuff like that, which don't get me wrong, it's great to have women in the workforce and stuff like that. But again, if you want to look at, things by design and stuff like that within our government and stuff, yeah, the whole, women's liberation movement and oh yeah, bra burning and all that shit like that kind of thing back in those days, dude, in the 60s, 70s and stuff. Again, all by design, all to basically get a secondary workforce to where they could undercut single family incomes. And so instead of just having dad bring home the bacon and mom frying it up in the fucking pan and taking care of the kids all day and stuff like that and being, there to actually raise a child or raise children for that matter, now you had mom going off to work, and that's where you had daycare centers being open and stuff like that. And now you have all cut, and decades later, now we see all the child abuse going on at those fucking places and everything else like that. And I was reading something the other day actually of it was some random chick, and I think it was Kentucky or one of those states like that, maybe Tennessee, where she was supposed to be a daycare center worker, and she was abusing fucking kids, dude. She was like physically abusing these children, and yeah, it's just not okay, bro. And that's the thing right now. And then you wonder, like, why your kids so neglected or whatever the case be at these, daycare facilities or whatever the case be. And it's because they're not getting the actual love and attention that they need from a parent. And then you end up, decades later having these disaffected youth and stuff like that in these schools because of shit like, CRT and fucking transgender ideology and stuff like that. And then you wonder why we're seeing all this fucking backlash. And then, yeah, you had Kanye West and Candace Owens the other day walking around in White Lives Matter t-shirts and stuff like that. And you had all these people basically out themselves as the true black supremacists and stuff they are, dude, because, it was whether that be that Mark Lamont Hill guy or whether it be fucking, I don't know if Sean King came out, but again, he's not really black is what it is. If you actually look at Sean King's background, I believe he's at bare minimum, he would be mixed race is what it would be. And I think he's mostly just white, is what it would be. And that's why they call him Talcum X and shit like that every so often. Which, by the way, is one of the funnier fucking monikers that he was labeled with. There's a few others, too, that I've heard for Sean King, and I can't think of any others offhand. But yeah, I always remember, like, the Talcum X one, because it's just, like, that's just funny, dude. Because, and the way you look at Sean King, actually, in general, and that dude is very much like a Malcolm X type in modern-day society and stuff, dude. But he's also a grifter piece of shit, too, when it comes to just basically trying to fund his own lifestyle and everything else like that. So yeah, it's just not cool, bro. But anyway, the entire point I'm trying to make is though, if it wasn't for the women's liberation movement and shit like that, you wouldn't see all the craziness going on right now in our society. You need to actually have, good parenting again, I think is what it would be. And unfortunately, when you don't have that kind of stuff and, we're seeing the fallout of that for, generations now, And then you see people that are like, "Oh no, but that's not how it is at all, dude." And it's like, it's not. Like, show me an example of how it's not, bro. Like, seriously. And that's the thing with so many people right now is they don't actually want to see it is what it is, man. They want to sit there and be willfully ignorant of it is what it is. And then, that's why you see people fighting back so hard nowadays because a lot of us are just sick and tired of it is what it ends up being, man. And we have every single right to be sick and tired of it because again, it's affecting us, it's affecting our fucking kids and our, nieces, nephews, etc. And we're the ones that are going to be living with that shit when it's all said and done, dude. Like, we're going to be the ones living in the fallout of that crap because it's us as a society that's going to survive on and stuff like that versus those who are, tend to be childless people and stuff who won't actually have a legacy when it's all said and done. And that's my thing right now. I think in general, like my whole thing is for years now, I've been trying to build a legacy to where I realized, so much so, and probably about the last, I would say 5 to 10 years or so, a lot of my loneliness has to do with the fact that I don't have children right now. And I don't have a, lady in my life is what it is to be my wife or whatever. And I think unfortunately, until that something happens there where I can, fix that kind of situation, a lot's not really going to change all that much. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, again, it's the dating pool. Yeah, yeah, no kids does equal more money, but then again, it's like, think about how much, a child's life brings to, the joy of a child brings to fucking people sometimes here and there. And I'm not going to sit here and say, you have to have biological children or anything like that. Again, adoption's an option, is what it is, dude. And it's a good option, honestly. And I would love to see more open adoption in this country. People talk about, pro life versus pro choice and stuff like that. Or really, it's pro life versus pro death. And my thing is, people want to sit here and bitch and moan about our current, foster care system or whatever it is there, dude. And it's like the problem there is you have an issue within our system to where we're not making adoption a priority, to where you're having people have to jump through so many fucking hoops and put through so much fucking money out of their own pockets to even get to the point of having a child in their home as potentially a foster child to where they could eventually get to that adoption point in time in history, that a lot of them, it's not worth it. And they'll go overseas and get kids then, dude. And unfortunately then, now you're just bringing in whoever then, and you don't know if that person's going to be good or not in the future is what it is, dude. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be, saving kids overseas and shit too. But again, when there's so many kids in our own system right now that want a loving home and could be awesome and, have great parents and shit like that, it's ridiculous, dude. And as I've said many times, when it comes to me as a single man right now, like they're not going to adopt a kid to a fucking single man, even though I'd be a great fucking father. I'd be a great single father to a fucking child right now, dude. But yeah, it's just a bunch of shit, honestly, dude. So yeah, it's very, very biased. We live in a very biased society, if you will. And unfortunately, it really does tend to be, sort of a man last society, I guess is the best way to describe it right now. But yeah, it just sucks, man. And it's a big issue. But like I said, going back to leadership thing and whatnot, there's going to be a lot of times in history in the coming, years and stuff like that. You're going to see a lot of people who will end up being, the natural leaders of this country and the natural leaders overall of things, to where people have finally had enough. And, whether that be a voting revolution, whether that be a tax revolt, whatever the case be, how seriously, how long has it really been in America since we've had a good rebellion? I think the last one was really that battle for Athens, and that was back in like the 40s, 50s, someplace in there. Because that, if you ever look into that, actually, that was an interesting one. I think Count Dankula did a great Mad Lads about that, if I'm not mistaken. It was like an hour and some change or whatever. and he basically broke down everything of how it was a bunch of guys who had seen their town become so corrupt because they were overseas at war and shit, and then came back and found out that they were basically getting fucked over to the point that they were like, no, bro, we're not having it. We're not allowing these corrupt sheriffs and mayors and shit like that in here anymore. And they basically took their town back by force, is what it was. So, but yeah, it's just sad that we, live in a country that, shits on the population is what it is, dude. And that we have people that, end up being killed for their belief systems is what it is, dude. I still haven't found out if my family has escaped Burkina Faso at this point either, which sucks. But I'm hoping to talk with some people here in the next couple of days about that then, and find out. Hopefully they got out. Like I said, I'm not sure that they wouldn't be okay right now because again, it seems to me like the entire reason that this last guy was couped out and the second coup is what it was because he wasn't dealing with Islamic terrorism, and the fact that these people don't want Islamic terrorism in their nation. I think white Christian missionaries would be okay then, dude, is what it would be. So, at least for some amount of time to where they'd be like, okay, cool, we're going to let, like, basically it's like, you guys just need like a checkpoint to the fucking airport kind of deal or whatever the case be, and you need like a armed escort or whatever it is, dude. And they'd be like, yeah, and they're like, okay, cool, we'll take you there, and you're fine after that then or whatever, and they just let them leave because of that is what it is then. Because yeah, those countries over there, dude, like it's super dangerous, man. Like I don't think people realize that outside the US, like all these, whether it be African nations or any other place like that, dude, like if you're not armed and you can't afford to hire someone who is, like you're not gonna be in good shape when things, go to shit essentially, and there's like some kind of crazy rebellion or coup or something like that, dude. So actually one interesting thing that my cousin told me about Burkina Faso is, so apparently that happens to be the one place on earth where pretty much all um hurricanes start out at, and they have like crazy like dust devils and stuff over there. And so about 6 months out of the year, you'll have like these crazy like windstorms and like all kinds of other like dust storms and shit like that. And then there's like the wet season, like there's obviously that dry season that's all that going on. And there's like the wet season that's like a month or two out of the year is what it is, where you'll have all of a sudden it'll just start raining pretty hard, and you just see plants basically spring out of the ground almost immediately. It's fucking crazy. It's like that what's that one thing? Tailspin, the old Disney cartoon from back in the day in the 90s. It's like then that guy finds the key thing to the dinosaur land or whatever you want to call it there. And yeah, like the whole place that they're at is like this giant desert or whatever the case be. And then as soon as you like plug this key in, it just becomes like this vast fucking array of just lush gardens and shit like that. It's kind of like that kind of deal. So it's really cool, apparently. And yeah, then they'll get all their stuff and be able to plant various things over there. And he said there's the one thing that grows over there quite a bit actually is a lot of peppers. And they grow huge apparently because they've a couple of people that are over there and have lived over there for generations and stuff have taught them how to do like some kind of crazy blend that'll create like these peppers that are like basically the size of like your forearm essentially is what it is. And yeah, they'll use those a lot in various cooking and shit. So but yeah, like I said though, it's interesting. It's interesting to hear, some of these stories and stuff like that, or the stories of these people that'll walk, 3, 4, 5 miles or more with a pot on their heads just to go get some water and shit. And yeah, my cousin's wife, she was talking about one of the places they were at one time where you had these two villager women who were waiting in line to go to the well is what it was, and fill up and shit. And the one apparently was trying to cut the other in line. And then she was like, I was pretty sure they were about to fight because you had them both like sit down their pots on the ground. Or actually, I don't think it was pots. It was like giant, like jug, like drum jug things or whatever. And yeah, they both set them on the ground, and then they were like hiking up their dress things and like turning their head wrap thingies a certain way, and she was like, "Yeah, I seriously thought they were about to throw down then." So, yeah, it was pretty funny. And I don't know if they ever did or not though, but yeah, like I could see that being a thing though, because again, you're essentially fighting over water, and what's sad is, again, it goes back to that situation of you know how many wars in the future are going to be fought over water or food or any other rations for that matter, dude. It's going to be some kind of water war or something else for that matter. And then you can go back and look at Jeb Bush, or not Jeb Bush, George Bush Jr., who after his presidency actually went over to Africa and bought a bunch of area over there to make actual water farms and stuff. So, yeah, I think a lot of these people know that there's going to be some kind of future where it's going to be like a water war kind of deal or whatever the case be, dude. Because again, without water, you're just fucked. And then people wonder why the government here in America is trying to tell people, oh, you can't collect rainwater on your own fucking property, or it's other kind of government regulation bullshit like that. It's unconstitutional as fuck. So, yeah, it's just a sad situation all the way around. And, going back to the Michigan thing for a sec there with the deer and stuff, and them trying to track people's kills and, how much meat they're producing, everything else like that, dude. It's like, nah, fuck you, dude. And I think you're going to see I think that's actually going to lead to a revolution there in Michigan, where it's either going to be them, taking seats of power there in the next election cycle is what it would be then, and reversing a lot of these BS laws there, or it would be something entirely where you'd have a lot of people step up and be like, you know what? I'm cool with being the local butcher for all of my fucking neighbors and shit like that. Anybody wants to bring their deer over here, I'll take a small portion for myself, and the rest you can, and I'll, process it down for you to have the rest of it is what it is then, dude. And again, it's them taking, an eighth, a fourth, whatever it is then, and that'd be the case. They're giving 3/4 to their family is what it'd be then, man. And I think you'd have a lot more people, or if nothing else, you might have like somebody teaching a class like that, where it's like, okay, here's how you break down a deer, like piece by piece and stuff like that. And I think the biggest thing is the reason that a lot of people don't process their own, kills like that is what it is because of the fact that they don't have the necessary equipment in some cases to do it, is what it is, man. Whether it be the hooks to, keep them, actually put them up there and stuff, and be able to do the dressings and stuff like that, and be able to, do the proper gutting and make sure everything's, cleaned out and everything like that, or whether it be the boning process and stuff like that to debone them, and actually know how to cut exactly in certain places to where you can get the best meat possible and the best portion sizes and everything else like that, dude. Because that's the big difference between being a butcher and being just a random person that does deer processing and stuff like that. Is I've seen people do it the right way, and I've seen people do it the wrong way, and there's people that will leave a lot of meat that could have been good meat on the fucking carcass, is what it is. And there's people that know what the fuck they're doing that will leave nothing because they know exactly where to cut, how to cut, exactly what to cut off, all that stuff like that. And yeah, when it's all said and done, it looks very professional and everything else like that. So, and that's a good thing about having, places like the Bearded Butchers here in Ohio, is they'll put out videos like that of how exactly to do that stuff, dude. And I think you're gonna have a lot more people do that kind of thing, is what it is. So to go back and address something there real quick. Yeah, Kyler Ellingson. Yeah, people won't say his name because they know what he was killed by. They know why he was killed, dude, and they'll have the cops go out there and be like, "Oh no, he wasn't killed because of fucking, racism or whatever the case being." It's like bullshit. He wasn't, dude. Or not racism. It was political rhetoric is what I'm thinking of right now, because I'm pretty sure the guy that killed him was a white as well. But yeah, that was 100% politically motivated murder is what it was, dude. And the reason that they won't talk about it is because it would make them fucking look guilty as shit is what it is, dude. And as they should look fucking guilty because they're fucking guilty. So, yeah, it's a bunch of BS, dude, entirely. But anyway, I have a lot of issues with the whole thing entirely, dude, because, you guys know what I've been saying about the whole thing entirely. I think, truthfully, if you look into the timeline it all happened, there's no way that Tim Ryan shouldn't be tried with accessory to murder at this point, dude, because it was his rhetoric legitimately that led to Kyler's murder is what it was, dude. Because within like 2 or 3 days of Tim Ryan talking about killing the MAGA movement, that you had Kyler killed. So yeah, it's a bunch of shit, dude. And it just really bothers me to see people get away with that kind of stuff, dude. And thankfully, in that case, though, they are actually trying that dude with Kyler's murder now, which is good. But again, the fact that Tim Ryan still has yet to be charged with any kind of accessory and shit, dude. It's like, come on, man. When's that going to happen? Let's get it done already. So, I don't know, man. It's a situation right now that I think it's an ongoing situation, is what it is right now, to where you're eventually going to see something happen here, hopefully, with that piece of shit Tim Ryan being charged somehow. And hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later. And from there, it'll basically be a situation then of how we as a society start dealing with this shit correctly and start dealing with criminal scumbags like Tim Ryan's what it is, dude. And hopefully, like I said, in less than 5 weeks, he'll be losing hard and never be heard from again politically, because he'll be a fucking multi-time sack of shit who is going to be a multi-time loser in races and stuff like that, and will be politically irrelevant when it's all said and done, dude. And hopefully the same thing will happen to Nan Whaley as well, because, she's a fucking failed mayor. I don't think, truthfully, just looking at the governor race and that U.S. Senate race from the primaries alone, each one of those people loses by anywhere from 3-1 to 7-1, depending on how many people vote for either J.D. Vance or Mike DeWine, for that matter. And like I said, with me personally, it's now becoming a situation of like, okay, do I waste a vote voting for a third person that may or may not even be on the ballot, or do I just say fuck it, give DeWine a potential win, because it literally is like the devil kind of thing, and then simply call in the General Assembly to impeach him after the fact and put one of the other people from the General Assembly into the governorship for the next few years, is what it would be then, which could be possible. And I think, truthfully, will they actually do that? Maybe, maybe not. My thinking is, again, even going to what, the FUD issue here in Ohio and stuff like that, dude, how many people are going to vote for DeWine just based on the fact that he actually signed constitutional carry or stand your ground into law in the last couple of years? And I think it's going to be a lot just based on that, dude. And especially with all the campaign ads of being like, oh yeah, look at all these jobs we're bringing back to Ohio now and stuff like that. Not mentioning a fucking word about hey, look at all these people's fucking businesses I put out of business over the 440 days of tyranny I committed in the last 2 years or so. And it's like, yeah, dude, come on now. And like I said, in a true just society, neither DeWine nor Whaley would even be in this governor's race. They'd both be in jail right now. And we would have 2 brand new people in this race, or even 4 or 5 brand new people in this race, because you'd have more than just the Republicans and the Democrats actually represented in this race, is what it would be, man. So, yeah, it is what it is, though. But like I said, I'm still not sure. That being said, I will be having my phone on me that day, just in case they try to do some fuckery with the machines and shit like that, so I can catch that stuff on camera, is what it would be, man. If I do end up casting for DeWine's ass and it comes up and it's like, nope, you're voting for Nan Whaley, and I'm like, no, I'm not. What the hell is this? Dominion. And yeah, it's a whole thing there, man. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of fucking chicanery going on in this election cycle. And thing is, after 2020, I think there's a lot of people ain't gonna put up with it anymore, dude. And the fact that we're now seeing, midterm elections where you have all these polls coming out, it's, generic Republican, just insert name here, basically, are going to trounce a Democrat in pretty much every single district across the board. Yeah. If there's not election audits after all this, dude, I'd be shocked. If something does happen and people don't sue states, I'm going to be shocked, because like I've said, I don't care which it is, dude. If it's either Nan Whaley or Tim Ryan, or both for that matter, somehow, quote unquote, win these races, I am suing this fucking state immediately, dude. I am suing this state and demanding multiple fucking audits at that point, dude, because there's no way that they win legitimately. They physically can't. They don't have the numbers, is what it is, dude. They do not have the numbers unless they have fucking millions of dead people in graveyards across the state voting for them, dude. Or it's a whole bunch of illegal aliens, for that matter, that have stolen people's IDs and shit like that, voting for them, if that be the case. And again, it's still massive voter fraud either way. So it's the same kind of bullshit Sherrod Brown pulled in 2018, dude. It's exactly why that shit should still be investigated to this fucking day, man. And that's the problem with only having voting records for different election cycles being held for like 18 months or something like that. It's like, no, that should be at least a 10-year fucking thing that they're held for in some database someplace, just so you can go back and be like, hey, let's audit this fucking election from, 4 years ago and stuff like that, dude, and prove that that motherfucker cheated his way back into office and remove him from office based on that alone is what it would be, man. Voter fraud is an actual crime in this fucking country, dude. When you're committing a massive voter fraud like that, it's specifically per fucking person that you had voter fraud for you. It's supposed to be 1 year and 1 day in jail and a $10,000 fine. So if you're talking about, 300,000 people illegally voting for you or, being purged off of voter rolls and then voting for you to get back into office or whatever the case be, even though they had no right to vote for you or they were not even there to vote for you is what it was, dude. And a bunch of fucking, fraud went on that way. It's like, yeah, you're talking about somebody who should be looking at potentially 300,000 years in jail is what it is, dude. So, anyway. Or really at that point, it would just be lifetime imprisonment, for real. And this is why deprivation of rights or color of law needs to be a fucking felony at all levels right now, dude. Because at that point, you would actually have citizens arrest abilities. And unfortunately, when it's just a misdemeanor in all states, you can't, you have nothing to get them on as a felony then. So, yeah, it's just a bunch of shit entirely, though. But like I said, it's just fucked up. If you haven't watched the Rakita Law video from last night, for those that haven't heard about that one, I guess that dude got nuked off YouTube because of calling out some pedo dude or whatever. And yeah, it's just a bunch of crap entirely, dude. So hopefully Nick, like I said, will get his stuff together and, do a lawsuit against YouTube and maybe take that to the Supreme Court or whatever the case be eventually and do what needs to be done. Because it would be awesome to see this site owned by content creators when it's all said and done, man. And, if nothing else, would create like a Reddit kind of deal with YouTube where it's, click on X thing here, and then it's just sub variants of that thing, whether it be politics, and then it's like Second Amendment issues, First Amendment, fucking constitutionalism stuff over here, random live streams of just people doing gaming stuff, whatever the case be. So, anyway, yeah. That being said, though, like I said, leadership and grid down. I think there's going to be a lot of people that will be natural leaders. Unfortunately, I think there'll be some people that will refuse to listen to them, and I think there'll be some people that will unfortunately perish because of that. And, I think there'll be some folks that will go full dictator, warlord kind of style, and it'll be, you either knuckle under or you're gone, is what it would be, man. And I think you'd have a lot more brutality like that happen. Is what it is, dude. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot of Negans after any kind of fall in this country, or at least people pretending to be Negans until they meet like an actual Negan, and then it's like, not good for that person that was just a fucking phony fraud is what it was, dude. Because it's not going to work out well for them, is what it would be, man. So, but yeah, I think truthfully, there's definitely going to be brutality for sure, to keep a certain subsection of humanity in line is what it would be, man, when it comes to falls and stuff like that. And unfortunately, it's going to be the people that, don't have the necessary resources to protect themselves that are going to be the ones who fall victim the fastest. There's actually some great memes out there. People are talking about essentially marauders is what it would be. And it was like two people and one person's all like, oh yeah, I'm hoarding, food and water for the end of the world. And the other person's like, I'm hoarding guns. And they're like, why aren't you hoarding food and water? And the person's like, because you are my food and water when it's said and done. Or yeah, it was something like, because you're the one that's stockpiling all my stuff for me is what it is. And unfortunately, I think there will be a lot of people like that is what it is, dude. I mean, hell, you look at the what the hell was that show called years ago? Doomsday Preppers, where you had the one guy talking about we are the Marauders, and that turned out he's a fucking felon and was doing all kinds of felonies on camera, and then got arrested after the fact. Like, Yeah, probably not smart to put yourself out there and be like, "Oh, we're gonna come take all your shit and take you out," and then meanwhile your dumb ass is sitting in prison for the next 10 years of your life because you're a fucking retard who's a convicted felon doing fucking firearm shit. So yeah, that guy was a fucking ass clown for sure, man. I think there's a lot of ass clowns like that won't survive, is what it is, dude. Hopefully, or they'd be stupid enough to like try something and not realize like, oh, by the way, there's like counter snipers everywhere, dude, and they just get fucking sniped out of nowhere. Is what it'd be, man. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting. And my thing I think is funny about that whole episode of that show was the guy was like acting as if they were going to be able to get past like defenses of a house and shit like that, as if people aren't going to have any defenses outside of their homes and stuff like that, dude. Like, I don't know, a fucking bear trap randomly set up or whatever the case be, or like something that would alert them to the presence of somebody outside and stuff. Or in the same vein of things, what I think is funny is the scenario that they played out in that was that they were walking into a home with like one person sleeping in it. It's like, first of all, dude, you would have at least an entire family inside of a home, number one, and they would have people sleeping in shifts so that you'd always have somebody on guard, is what it would be. And that's the big thing as well. You got to realize after that, being in that good leader mindset kind of thing is like, yeah, you're going to have like at least a small group of people with you just so that you have people being able to sleep in shifts depending on where the fall's at, dude. So you can have at least, 1 century or whatever it is, dude, out and about doing stuff and being able to, every 3-4 hours, whatever it is, be switched out with somebody else, and that's what it would be then. So, but yeah, I think there's definitely people that don't think about those kind of things, and it's one of those things that I do think about quite often because you know I don't want to get caught with my fucking pants down. Is what it is. If something were to ever happen, is what it would be, man. And unfortunately, when people don't look into things like that and don't actually, prepare for certain events like that, they're going to be the ones left in the dust, is what it'll be. So, and maybe they'll luck out and hopefully find somebody that will take them in or whatever the case be. But in a lot of cases, it's like, yeah, unless you have a decent skill set or something else for that matter, man, you're done. And that's one thing about myself, as bad off as I am right now, health wise and stuff, which I'm not, horribly health wise, but I'm still, a lot less than I should be right now. Uh, when it comes to being able to, survive in a grid down scenario and stuff like that. I feel like I have a decent enough skill set right now where I would be a vital person to certain things. And that's another thing too, by the way. If you have like skill sets of being able to like forge knives or weaponry or anything like that, dude, like you're gonna be definitely a priority when shit is the fan, especially if you can forge it out of like just random fucking coals and stuff like that. Because the thing is, you're not gonna have most likely if it's like an EMP attack or something like that, you're not gonna have the ability to do like some kind of a, you know, electric or long term like gas forging or whatever, dude. So which I'm not so sure it'd be electric forging. I think it'd be more like gas powered forging and stuff like that for the actual forges and shit. But yeah, you're not going to be able to get the gas you need because electricity would be an issue for some of that stuff. Now, granted, you could probably find some here and there, but again, unless you're stockpiling that stuff for like propane or whatever it is, dude, eventually that's going to all go bad no matter what is what it would be, man. Same thing with gasoline for that matter. Unless you're putting like stabilizer and stuff in it, it's only going to last a few years anyway. And then it would be something like how they that's the one thing I did appreciate with Fear the Walking Dead compared to the main series is that in Fear they actually showed the whole thing of like gas and they had to make gas and shit then, and being able to refine like oil into gasoline then, like that was very interesting. I thought that was very good, and I appreciated that season of that show quite a bit because it showed like the actual uh manpower it took to get that done then. So, but yeah, what was interesting though is going on that line of thinking and stuff like that, like you would have to have major groups to do that stuff, dude. And again, if you're going to be one of these people that's going to be maybe like 5-10 people in a group or whatever the case be, dude, you're going to only be able to do a certain amount of things as a small group. And if you're not part of a larger community or like a bunch of smaller groups coming together and forming like a larger community or larger communities for that matter, or it's like multiples, I think you're going to be a lot less well off in post collapse society than it would be if you're going to be part of like, a couple hundred people or whatever the case be then. And like I said, I think honestly, when it comes to things like that, like I would say a few dozen to a few hundred would probably be the maximum number you'd want to have as a group of people and stuff like that, just because, again, more mouths equal more food necessary to take down everything else like that. And, there's going to be a lot less for everybody when it's all said and done. And I think, going back to that uh, documentary I keep referencing, which again, I can't remember exactly what the name of it is offhand, but again, just look up pandemic documentary 2010, I think is what it was, time period there or whatever, and it'll probably pop up there. It was about a father, son, and the guy's wife. So it's about those three people is what it would be then. And yeah, they were talking about the expert people, and they were mentioning stuff about like subsistence living and stuff like that, where it would be essentially garden to table to mouth essentially, and it would be one of those things where you'd have people figuring out very much like hard fucking time period where you're gonna plant a garden or whatever one day for the first season, you're gonna have barely anything, be able to barely survive or whatever, and then it's like the next season you're finally learning shit and being able to do stuff that needs to be done and figuring out like, okay, I can make, you know, a really good garden out of like these 4 or 5 different vegetables and stuff like that, where it's all gonna come up primarily at the same time, and I'm gonna be able to harvest all that shit for the winter time then. And that's also why you see, in all these different countries, whether it be Ukraine or Russia, whatever the case be, you have these people that will have these little uh, root cellars where it's a lot of potatoes and yams and stuff like that in them is what it is, dude. And it's because, again, it's those hardy ass things that you would need to have to survive a long term winter and stuff like that, dude. And if something does happen, you can survive on that stuff. And I'd like to point something out too, by the way. When it comes to potatoes, the skin is where all the nutrients and vitamins are at, dude. And that's the one thing going back in history that we've learned is there were families back in the potato famines and stuff like that where the mother and father would eat the skins, not even thinking, and be giving the kids the actual inside starch potato area and stuff like that of the potatoes. The kids would end up dying because they wouldn't have the nutrients because they didn't realize that the fucking skin of the potato was actually where all the nutrients were at. And the parents would survive and the kids wouldn't. So, yeah. If you're ever going to be in that situation, man, make sure you're cutting those potatoes into like actual like slices essentially to where the skin stays on them and shit. And, cook them however then. And make sure that everybody's eating some of the fucking skin then, because if not, you're not going to survive because you're not going to have the nutrients necessary to actually maintain and be able to get the vitamins and shit necessary to survive that then. So, anyway. But yeah, it's the same thing with everything else for that matter, dude. It's like the skin of things like that, whether it be, root vegetables is usually where the most nutrients are at is what it is then. And again, looking at other stuff like carrots are really good for your eyes. All the I think it's B vitamins is what it is in them and stuff like that. And then again, I think truthfully, another thing to stock up on for any kind of like grid down thing would be probably vitamins, because vitamins and then especially spices. Because you look at vitamins specifically, if you're vitamin deficient in certain things, you're not going to be able to go as long as you would think you'd be able to. And then spices, because this one thing I think is funny is you always hear people talking about like, oh yeah, I'm stocking up on these big ass 50-pound bags of rice and beans and stuff like that, and I'm gonna be eating good and fucking grid down. Yeah, dude, rice and beans gets really fucking old really fucking quick, and unless you're adding some kind of fucking other protein to that shit, whether it be fucking some kind of a meat like a fucking like rabbit or deer or whatever the case be, some kind of an actual meat source, chicken, whatever, eggs for that matter, you're not going to be able to go on something for more than like a week or two before you're like, I'm pretty much sick of this shit, dude. So, and the same thing with obviously like, obviously I'm saying like things that people don't think about stocking up on. I'm not, because everybody's stocking up on ammo. That's smart, man, is what it is. It's just, the other people that don't think about like, hey, let's have, a bag of vitamins or something like that, or a, backpack full of vitamin bottles or whatever it be then, and like medical supplies and shit like that. Like that's, and I've talked about this before, dude, when it comes to like barter and trade and stuff like that. And I've actually been for the last like couple of years now creating a barter and trade system thing. And that was one thing I thought was funny. Last night I was watching NEA's cast, and he had one of the other guys on there, and that dude was talking about trading a couple boxes of ammo to some dude for like a chicken or two, and I'm just like, man, you are really fucking not good at bartering if that be the case. Because honestly, like, sorry, bro, like in grid down, man, if you're talking about ammo versus, some kind of a food source like that, like it's gonna be a lot more or a lot less one way or the other, man. And like I've done like a whole things like that where it would be like, depending on what you're trading for, it would be a couple of rounds at most. And then, you know, if you're talking about like a box or two at that point, like you're talking about much larger trades, and maybe that would equate to like a chicken or something, actually, or a couple chickens or whatever the case be, or maybe like a chicken, a few dozen eggs or something then. So, but yeah, it's, you got to realize like what the value of stuff is, and you can't like overvalue anything, and you really shouldn't undervalue stuff either, and you should really be able to figure out something. I think there's going to be a lot of people that would go on like a trade basis, and there'd be some people that would be like, okay, I got this, like, what do you got for me is what it is, kind of thing, or whatever. And again, it goes back to, what we talked about before on this channel, which is the whole trade of people in a collapse where, it's going to be a time period where there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to kill for whatever they need to begin with. And then there's going to be that time, 6 months, a year later, whatever it's going to be, the people that have survived till then and that are going to be able to, do real trades is what it'll be, but it might be, everybody's armed to do those trades on both sides of the thing. So yeah, it's a whole thing. But anyway, that's pretty much where we're at for the day though. And yeah, I got to get some stuff done right now, and I'm going to try to do some other things. I got a thing coming up in this game in a few minutes is what it is. So got to make sure I get everything done before that happens. We're doing daily stuff now for season 2 of this game, which is fun, but unfortunately it's also a pain in the ass because it's affected my sleep schedule some, and that's why I'm awake right now, actually. That being said, I have gotten some good sleep actually in the last couple of days. Ironically enough, mom's not here, and I think maybe that's why, because I haven't had to have her like wake me up halfway through fucking sleep is what it is, dude. So I've just been able to get myself up by like alarms and shit. But anyway, yeah, it is what it is though. And like I said, I think what we're gonna end up seeing is a situation when it comes to potentially grid down, or even before grid down for that matter. You're gonna see a lot more Americans and a lot more people worldwide for that matter start becoming natural leaders, and people are gonna listen to them, is what it will be. And some people aren't. I think there's going to be a majority that will. I think there's going to be a small minority that won't. And I think there's going to be a lot of willfully ignorant people that if they don't, they're going to be the ones that end up putting themselves in situations where they're not going to make it to whatever. And I think, unfortunately, the longer people bury their heads in the sand when it comes to things like that, the more inclined that they're going to be to end up getting fucked up in the grid down, and the more that they're going to open themselves up to being, victims and stuff. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, and unfortunately, people don't care. Some people care, some people don't care, and the ones that do care and the ones that understand, like, okay, this is what has to be done to make sure that we maintain, kind of thing. Those will be the ones that end up being the folks who are willing and able to get things done versus the people who do not give a fuck and will end up being the folks who, you know, like I said, they just don't make it out alive. And unfortunately, you need to wake up now and realize, like, where are you at in that situation? And if you're in that second camp, it's time to get into that first camp, is what it is, dude. It's time to put your, you know, random bullshit aside and actually do what needs to be done to figure out where you're going to be when things are said and done. And that's pretty much where we're at for the day. So, like I said, got to go do some stuff right now, and then I'll probably most likely be back here in, I don't know, a few hours or whatever. Like, I'm thinking about the 2A podcast right now, and I'm like, do I want to wait until like 5 or 6 tonight to do that? Or I'm going to do that in like 2 or 3 hours is what it'll be. And I think maybe it'll be like 3 or 4 hours from now, if at all, for that matter. Um, if not, it'll be probably, like I said, later tonight or tomorrow morning or something. So actually, that was pretty much perfect timing in this game because I just looked at my thing and it's like almost ready to go right where it's at there. So, which is nice because now I can build a bunch of stuff and be able to save myself a bunch of rubies and stuff in game now every day because I finally got to level 18 town hall in my third account in this game. And yeah, you have to have a certain thing built is what it is to be able to, that you can't build until level 18, that can save you a bunch of money and stuff like that. So, but anyway, yep, that being said, that's where we're at for the day. And like I said, people will figure out things, and some people will be natural leaders, some people will be, naturally inclined to be part of like a council of people. And I think the more and more that we're seeing, the fuckery and the cuckery and the fucking stupidity of our current, administrations and everything else like that in this country and every other country across this world, the more people are sick and tired of it, dude. You finally see people rebelling now. You finally see people that are just over dictatorships and fucking, globalism bullshit is what it is, dude. And are just sick and tired of tyranny worldwide. And I think, the more people that wake up to that stuff, the more you're going to see people wanting to be armed now. And the more you're going to want to see people adopting Second Amendment style constitutions. And good for them, because that's what it needs to be anymore, dude. And the fact that you haven't seen so many of these countries already do that stuff, dude, I think it's kind of ridiculous. It's very hard to fight back against a tyrannical government while you're unarmed or you have, a knife or fucking a bat or a club or something like that, versus, okay, I have a gun and they have a gun kind of thing, and then you're basically a stalemate is what it is, dude. And I believe that's truthfully when it comes to America right now, why America hasn't totally collapsed, because that's why they want to disarm us so bad, because they understand that, yeah, the one thing keeping them in check right now is all the citizenry being able to be armed. And when you have Americans having like 40 something percent of all guns right now, it's time to stock the fuck up, dude, and it's time to get shit done. And if you're not like this, I'll say it like this right now. I don't care if you're pro gun or anti gun in America in 2022, dude. If you're not armed, you're a fucking fool. And it's as simple as that. Because when shit goes south, if you're not armed, you're going to be the fucking victim immediately. And you're going to be one of the ones that doesn't survive because you have no way to protect yourself, versus the criminals who actually are armed is what it would be. So, yeah. That goes out to all the anti-gunners out there, man. I don't care if you're anti-gun or not, dude. If you're not going to protect yourself, you're a fucking silly ass fool is what it is. And it's as simple as that, dude. So, yeah, that's pretty much where we're at, though. Like I said, I'll be back later today. I realized after yesterday I should have actually been in my main account for the last couple episodes, because I had like 2 or 3 hours left on that. Didn't use it all up of the 20 hours that they give me for free. And now that's basically sitting on a new 20 hours now. So, but yeah. It's funny, though, to see people when they, finally wake up and realize, like, oh shit, we actually have to protect ourselves kind of thing. And, like I said, when you look back at 2020, especially here in Ohio, when you had like cops in these major city areas telling people like, oh yeah, if you're not being, violently assaulted and stuff like that, and it's just like some random carjacking or fucking whatever the case be, or people are just like trespassing on your property, we're not going to answer those calls is what it is, dude. And it's like, Jesus fuck, man. And then you wonder why fucking firearms ownership shot through the fucking roof for first time gun buyers, dude. And what's interesting is I was reading a story yesterday that was talking about that, and it says something about how there was 1 million plus guns bought every month for the past 38 months now. That's huge, man. So you're talking about almost 4 years in a row now that people have bought guns. Well, I guess technically a little over 3 years would be, so it'd be 2019, 2020, 2022 then. and then probably back into 2018 would be my guess as well on that one, because just judging by that time period now, because we're not quite 36 months into it being the entirety of 2022 now. So, and then adding in a couple more months after that. So yeah, I can tell you right now, the reason I'm a gunner now is because of 2018 midterms. Just all the fucking blue that was coming, and I'm like, fuck that. So, I saw these retards like fucking Cortez coming out of the woodwork and potentially going to win seats of power and stuff like that. And I'm like, I ain't letting these fucking cocksuckers take my constitutional rights away. Fuck them. And yeah, that's why I bought some guns, is what it was, sold some shit, bought some guns, did the whole Jesus thing where it's like, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy a sword kind of deal. So, in that case, I sold my MTG collection and I bought some fucking firearms, and I've never looked back. And I wish, honestly, the one thing I would have looked back on is what I was buying at the time, because I would have bought some better guns, is what it would have been then. Because at least one of the ones that I have right now is not the greatest, is what it is. And I would because I thought it was an American company, but it wasn't. It was a Chinese made fucking clone of something. And yeah, if I had had another $50 to put in the mix or whatever at the time, I could have bought a better American made shotgun then. So, and unfortunately, those deals are gone, because the closest thing now is like almost 250, I think, for a lot of those now, like 220, 250 someplace in there. So hopefully they'll be back again at some point though. But yeah, I definitely want to get a one of those Mossberg Maverick 88s at some point in the future, just because it's good, working man's gun. If I can get it for about the $2 range, it'd be awesome. And then other guns I'd like to pick up, actually, if I had the cash right now. I was thinking about this the other day. I was telling my mom about it, and I was like, yeah, if I had a couple $1,000s, like what I would buy right now, and it's like I'd buy that. I'd buy one of the Taurus 942s and 22 as a backup revolver to have with me at all times, and potentially also like a snake gun too for the farm and shit. And then so it'd be those two guns. I'd buy another AR, or at least enough shit to build another AR is what it would be then. And then I'm trying to think what else now. So it'd be those three things. I would say AK, but I don't really want to go that route yet, because again, with everything going on in Russia and Ukraine, like 7.62 is gone now pretty much. And yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, what should you invest in? And again, well, first of all, I'd probably have a couple more handguns, honestly. Probably have another 9mm. Probably have a probably some kind of 1911, actually, so 45. And then rebuy into the gun that was stolen from me last year, or at least the AR pistol version of that is what it would be then. So I'd get that, and then I'd have, so that'd be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then probably, trying to think now what else I'd want. Probably some 38 special or 357 revolver as well. So, do a little bit of caliber diversity. And then again, it's like one of those things where it's like, do you really want to diversify out that much, or do you want to just, primarily have like 4 or 5 rounds that you go by and stuff? Because the thing is, like, there's a lot more 9mm in this world than there is 40 or 45 or 38 or 357 or whatever the case be. And then there's also a lot more other shit too as well, when it comes to, various things and what have you. So I don't know. It's one of them situations where you're, looking at things and you're trying to diversify your options and shit, and then unfortunately people don't want to, diversify is what it is. And so you end up, buying something that maybe you don't need, is what it would be, man. And yeah, thankfully I just able to proc this thing now, so that was good. Just opened my thing in my game now. So yeah, I just saved myself like 380 on that deal for the day, so that's cool. And going ahead and building up these two things right now to at least level 1. Nice. Didn't do anything else besides that. Cool. But anyway, so yeah, the big thing though is when you look into, you know, what's happening across the board at this point in history, and you see, just the craziness going on in our society and just how insane people have become lately. It's like, do you really want to be unarmed versus insanity? And it's like, for me personally, it's like, oh hell nah, bro, kind of a deal. And I think some people would be like, it's whatever. And unfortunately, those are going to be people that again are going to, fall to whatever it'll be then. So yeah, I'm not about that life, man. I'm not about that life. And unfortunately, people that are, you know, sort of silly asses, I think, in some cases, because again, they're allowing themselves to be taken advantage of or whatever the case be. And the ones who actually do understand like where we're going and where, the world is heading and how crazy things can get, they will be the ones that will survive. And that's as simple as that, really. And that's all I just said about the end of the day. So, but yeah, my thinking is like, there are some things I think people should have for calibers and stuff like that. And I've thought about this over the time periods of like, what would be like the like the like most common calibers, and then like, your lesser calibers, and then of course it would be like the really oddball shit is what it would be then. Like, because you have like basically have like four different things, four different categories, I believe, when it comes to um, gun calibers. So you have the most frequently used stuff. You have a secondary set of like kind of used stuff. You have what is considered to be like semi oddball, and then you have just oddball. And so for those four things, for the like most frequent stuff, it would be like 9 mil, 12 gauge, 22 LR. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think now. Yeah, it'd be 9 mil, 12 gauge, 22 LR, and like 223, 556, and to I would almost say a lesser extent, because not everybody has an AK, would be like 762 by 39. So that would be like my like top five things of pretty much everything everybody would have for like main caliber choices. And then you would have for secondary stuff, it would be like 40, 45, 38, 357, 20 gauge, etc. And then for like the semi oddball, that's not really like oddball and stuff like that. Well, actually, I guess technically with the main caliber, actually no, I think the second caliber stuff would be more like 308 and shit like that is what it would be then. So, or actually maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think now if 308 would be more of a mainstay now, because that could be more of a mainstay now. I know there's a lot of people who have AR-10s and shit now, so maybe 308 would be in that first category then, along with like 762 and shit like that. So it'd be maybe like those six or seven then, and then it would be like stuff like 30-06. I think would be in like the secondary category because now everybody has an M1 Grand or whatever it is then. Just like now everybody has a 20 gauge. And then yeah, the like semi oddball shit would be like hunting calibers for like straight walled states and stuff like that. So it'd be like 350 Legend, 450 Bushmaster, 4570, 270 even. I would think like would be like I don't want to say oddball, but like maybe like not frequently like actually that'd be more of a thing like not frequently used. I guess it would be or more like hunting caliber rounds. I guess is what we would put those in the category of. So it'd be like 3D Legend, 40 Bushmaster, 270, 3030, because I don't really consider 3030 to be like a mainstay in either of those first two, actually. Although maybe it might fall into like the secondary category of stuff, though, because I've heard people say a lot of things about 3030 lately. But again, I guarantee you, if you know, did like a show, like if you took like 10 gunners together and were like, show of hands who has a 3030, you might have a couple go up, but it wouldn't be enough to be sufficient enough to really be like, okay, that's a caliber people are stockpiling kind of thing is what it would be. And then for like the really oddball shit, it would be stuff like 45 gap and um 50 BMG and shit like that. I would consider it being those categories and stuff, dude. Because again, who's stockpiling 45 gap or who's stockpiling 50 BMG is what it is, man. Not many people. Not many people at all, dude. Uh, I mean, hell, you look at Kentucky Ballistics. That guy was buying the shit from other people is what it is, man. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much where we're at though. And it's funny to me that you have people that don't, really get it when it comes to certain things. Other people that do kind of get it, and then a mix thereof in between. And I think the more and more that we're seeing, certain things happening, and like I said, the more that people are finally waking up to the fact that they are, in a situation of insanity, basically, the more that they're going to end up putting themselves into a situation of, you know, yeah, things could go good, things could go bad, all that shit like that is what it is. And unfortunately, the more and more that we're seeing things, sort of tick off the board now and inflation kicking up and everything else like that. Yeah, you're seeing it not be a seller's market anymore when it comes to guns, dude. It's definitely a buyer's market now. And there's a lot of people who should be getting a lot more for their firearms when it comes to selling and stuff, dude. And there's a lot of people that aren't. And the one thing I thought was always interesting, this is one thing I've heard from a lot of people, is how many people will sell one gun to go buy like a shotgun or a rifle or something like that for hunting season, instead of just be thinking ahead and being like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this thing now. And okay, cool. Now I got this thing. Like, I still need this first thing, is what it is. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of people who have thought ahead like that, dude. And those tend to be the people that will, you know, unfortunately not succeed when things go south, is what it is, because they're not really thinking ahead, is what it is, dude. And they'll end up being, semi victimized, is what it would be, because they're not thinking, fully of like, hey, I need all these things, not just one of these things, is what it would be. And my thing is, that's one reason why I would sit there and come up with more money, is what it would be every single time when I was doing stuff, because there was never not a time where I wasn't going to be having the ability to go hunting, and then also having the ability to go, protect myself and my family and stuff like that. So it was, I would come up with the cash around whatever time period, and hopefully there's a sale going on. And yeah, that's how I got my 20 gauge actually. And then there's a lot of other people, that don't realize when it comes to um, cycles and stuff, like going back to the caliber thing and stockpiling and stuff, dude. There's a lot of people that don't understand, like, there are only certain calibers that are only produced every few years, is what it is. And so you'll have like a lot less of those on the market because of that reasoning, is what it is. And when people wake up to that fact, they're like, really? And it's like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay then. And then they realize, like, oh, maybe I should be stockpiling on certain things like this. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of thing. And like I said, I think you're seeing a lot more people waking up to the fact that, whether they be underprepared or whether they be semi prepared, they're starting to get more prepared just because of what we've seen in the last couple of years now. And I'm glad to see that, honestly, because, you know, people that don't want to wake up to the fact that potentially you could wake up tomorrow and there's no power, there are going to be a lot less of those people very soon, I think, because whether it be, they don't make it through or whatever the case be, and, people finally realize, like, oh, I do have to be my own first responder kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, when you're finally in that mindset, and it's finally one of those situations where you're like, okay, cool, let's do this now kind of thing, those end up being the people that will become the strongest of all, dude. And those will be the people that will be mentally prepared for when the fall happens, that they're going to have to take on the responsibility of a leadership role. And they're going to have to be the people that step forward and, take others under their wing to actually form a better community and a better society. And it would be those kind of folks that, maybe they don't see that better community or better society because, something happens and they cut their hand or something like that and all the antibiotics are gone and they, die of a fucking infection, which, by the way, was a common thing before antibiotics were in this country. back in the 1800s, early 1900s, and stuff like that, dude, that would be a common occurrence of people, when you look at graveyards and stuff like that, and you have some person that was like 30, 40 years old, dude, it's because they got a fucking, split their finger open or something like that, and it got infected, and yeah, they didn't make it. So that's another thing too, by the way, and that's why you should always know, not only, when it comes to stockpiling like medications and medicine and stuff like that, or any kind of like first aid kit kind of stuff, it should also be knowing what kind of plants can make actual things to help with infection and stuff like that, dude. Because when it's all said and done, I think, the longer that grid down would be down for, you're going to have a lot more people becoming medicine men and stuff like that, or medicine women, or, some kind of other people and stuff, which is a good thing to have a medicine bowl for, by the way, to have like a grinder and stuff like that. So you can actually like, muddle stuff and be able to do things together and actually, be able to like crack a leaf or whatever it is with the fucking, stone handle thing like that, and be able to actually get all the essence and oils and stuff out of that thing to actually be able to help someone survive past something, dude. So yeah, it's one of those things I've been looking into doing for a while now, and hopefully it'll be sometime the end of the year I'll be able to pull that off then. But until then, that's pretty much where we're at for the day, though. And like I said, I'll be back at some point here. Probably going to go to the other account now that I have another 20 hours on that account. We'll be doing the other Ohio Patriot Education Network avatar, where it's got the cool letteration to it, the blue and red and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we'll most likely be back for a 2A cast. It's already what, 9:30. I'm not going to say noon or anything like that. What I will say is, like, if you don't hear anything by like 2 o'clock this afternoon, I'm either taking a nap or you're not going to get a cast today, is what it is. But I'll make an update around that time period probably. So right now I'd have to go and look for a couple stories and stuff like that to talk about for the day. And yeah, I haven't really heard much of anything about the Smith & Wesson lawsuit anymore after it being like a thing there with Highland Park people. I was going to talk about that for the day, obviously, but there's other things I was going to talk about as well. So we'll probably talk a little bit more about Michigan and the hunting thing, because I'm going to look into legiscan.com about that and see if there's any kind of legislation that was passed there in the last couple of years to push that crap through or not. It wouldn't surprise me if there was, actually. So anyway, like I said, until later, I will see you guys in the next one.